So hi everybody and welcome back. I make it again this video, and I say again because I already made an Italian version of the video, which I was hoping it worked quite well for the English subtitles, but it seems from the comment I had from some guys around the world, mostly in the USA and South America, that the translation in their own language, so to Spanish or to English, didn't work so well. In some places they could neither find it or try to set it, in the proper language. So I have to make it again this video because I really would like everybody around interested in this type of subject to understand properly what I mean with this type of review about this kit. So as I mentioned before, this is basically the realization of the file I bought from cults3d. Cults3d is I think is a French platform where the designer plays their own 3D design in STL format. STL format is, according from what I know, I'm no 3D designer, so I'm no specialist in such stuff. I'm just a modeler. It's the format of the 3D files ready to be printed by a home printer or something even more professional. But the format, like for picture, the JPEG, the STL is the file for this stuff. And it happened to me that back in 2024, in the fall of 2024, I won a competition in Brescia in a wonderful scenario, and the prize for that category that I was participating in, where I get the first prize, was to win a bonus in money about which you can use on the platform on cults3d, was more or less about $100, to spend there. And I was so happy because I find many design of some items. Basically I need wheels, I need details, I need wings, I need seats, smaller details for my creation. And in when I was picking up the files that I really wanted to buy, I crossed this wonderful file about the Ferrari 333 SP. The real car was actually a Dallara based Ferrari. It was considered by so many of the purists not like a real Ferrari, despite the name was Ferrari 333. It was basically a Dallara, and also the shape is typical from all the Dallara cars of the period. So you have this type of I don't know how to explain, this type of Coca-Cola side of the prototype, typical of that type of 90s WSC cars that raced the WSC Championship and the IMSA category in the USA. And the motor was indeed a Ferrari 12 cylinder. So this is very, very briefly short. The car never won something big around. I mean, she never made the checkered flag winning the 24 hours of Le Mans, which in the beginning she was probably meant to end, but at the time the Le Mans category was still not so big like it is today, where Ferrari involves themselves with the 499P in the first position of the developer of the car. So it was everything translated to a company that is the Dallara. Dallara is making the IRL prototypes, so it's making Formula cars. So it's Giampaolo Dallara made the Dallara company that is one of the best ever. The file is absolutely well designed, and I was happy because during my posting in the social media, I crossed the Olivier. Olivier is an Italian designer that made this model. I didn't know that he was Italian, because this file you can find on cults3d like olivizzle, something like that. It's enough that you go in cults3d platform and you digit search for Ferrari 333 SP, and you will find a couple of them. Some are clearly not so well done. Then you will see a red assembled model that I think he assembled by his own, and is exactly this one. What I crossed here, it was the version 1 he made about this car. Then he contacted me because he seen my social media when I was explaining this car and placing the first pictures of what I was able to create with his file, and he contacted me, very kindly guy, and I really hope soon I'm back to Milano. Right now I'm still in Sweden, and soon I am back to Milano, and I really hope I can meet in person the guy, because he seems very interesting designer, interesting guy, you know. And he told me in DM that he updated the first file that I downloaded, and I made it available for everybody, because it was basically me at the time that contacted the guy from whom now everybody is buying this model, because it's basically the only one that allow you to buy a 3D printed copy of that without you having a 3D printer. I mean, if you are one of the guys that already have one or two 3D printer by your own, you can simply buy the STL file, also work on it, change some details and add parts and touch something if you know how to do it. Of course, there is no limit in that type of projecting. But if you are like me, that you don't have a printer, you are not a 3D guy, you just want the finished object to be ready, you have to buy this via Janest at jpgmodels.com. If you search for it, you find him in eBay, but I suggest you to contact him directly. In eBay is easier, you know, but the guy talk perfectly English, so you can deal absolutely with him, and is based in Slovenia. So you will have an expedition from Europe, and right now, because I know that this is an American, basically is an American racer, you know, and right now could be complicated with the new stuff that is going on around the world to have stuff coming from Europe when the new taxation will be applied to the stuff coming from extra Europe. So I don't know how it works, you know, because I am in Europe too. I am both located in Italy and in Sweden. I live in both the countries, so for me it's not this big issue, you know, despite there is a lot of countries that are not connected to the European community, but they are still in Europe. So anyway, the timing, the communication is already with the UK can be a little bit tricky after they made the Brexit to have items at a reasonable price without crossing the custom officer and some other extra mess that can make it the price increase even more, you know. So I don't know if there is somebody in the US that printed this stuff. Surely, I mean, USA is so big country that of course there is some companies that can also absolutely offer a printing service, you know, and but I'm not in contact with them. I mean, I'm having some trouble right now to find some decals from the USA, and became complicated for the expedition, for the cost indeed to cross the ocean, you know, with items. So I really don't know if there is somebody there that offer a printing service like this guy basically does now, because the big situation, as I was explaining in the beginning of the video, the big situation come after the dismiss of the Shapeways website. Shapeways, I think it was Dutch-based, and it was a site like cults3d, able to take your STL file and also offer you a printing service, which I never have been further and see the quality of what was arriving, because, you know, as you probably well know, the modern printing technology is evolving every day. So this is stuff that have been made this year, but probably the stuff that will be made in the next few years with the new machine will be even nicer, even more detailed. So it's really amazing what you can do with this stuff, you know. The file indeed made by Oliver is, I think, absolutely well done. It's a little bit tricky about the version, you know, because when I got this file printed in my version 1, you will find the feature of the 333 with open vents on the main wheel arch. This was a very nice feature, you know. Back in the days, if you check on my website, sorry, on my YouTube page, sorry, you will find the review I made about the BBR 333 SP in resin that I was planning to make in resin, like a complete full detailed model, you know, with my own engine and so on. But then this model arrived, and I think it's much more easy and absolutely cheaper for everybody, me included, to produce the stuff. Instead, buying this one is absolutely something cheaper. I think that you can make everything for something around 60 or 70 euros, something like that. So it's absolutely a bargain price. It's the price of a Tamiya kit. But in my version, you know, that was the version 1, and the tricky point is that what you are currently buying from the Slovenian friend from JPG Models is basically my first file. I say mine even if it is from Oliver, but it's the first file that I bought from Oliver, and it is the version 1. And the first version 1, basically, it is a kind of incomplete model of the very first version that he did. I didn't know that he was developing further version, but if you buy directly the file from cults3d, this is my message, do not simply go, you can go both the site, you can also, because we are talking of, in my opinion, quite a few amount of modding. Consider that the original BBR kit, the last one I sold to a friend for 2,000 for 200 euros, so it was much more expensive than everything that we are talking about here. So the original frame from Olivier on cults3d cost, I think, 25 euros. The printing from JPG models cost 60 euros, and it is bargain prices, you know. But in my specific request, I just wanted to be printed the first version, the first one that I get in November 2024. Olivier told me that he just updated the file, making the version 2 of this car, that of course have a zip file containing in the folder. When you buy the STL file, you will find a quite big folder, is about 500 megabytes, you know, and you will find a zip folder featuring inside also this first version of Sprint Track WSC car with open side vent, with this type of upper vent, and she didn't have at the time any kind of hub. So basically the model that you get was in this shape, you know, the covering was already fixed on. Even if you look carefully, it's already prepared. You see there is the cutting line down there where you can do the work that I made it here. Later on I will show you the opened rear bonnet, you know. Basically I get two cars, so the long tail version and the short tail. Checking picture, I never seen the long tail with open side vents. It may be possible because basically the Dallara Ferrari had a very different configuration. Basically you can find open side intakes and closed side intakes, plus the flat floor of the car was different here from the Momo car, because the Momo car start to be slightly different from this point. Getting inside, it was completely different and curved with a little wing here, trying to create a kind of Venturi effect for the car to be even more performing in Daytona like they did in 1998. This car was ultra famous in America because it was the red, I think car number 33 if I'm not wrong, but it was the red Momo car that won Daytona in 1998. So it was a kind of Cinderella, you know, to win in Daytona with something like this was something really, really big that Momo Moretti did back in the 90s, you know, with his own car. Momo Moretti was a guy that I met in person in the 90s. Consider that was somebody, it was the founder and the creator of the Momo logo. The Momo was making steering wheels, was making helmet, was making gears for racing in cars and bikes. Was a very nice company, but the guy completely fucked up all his life and all the money that he had after this type of car, because this car in the origin was not developed completely by Ferrari. That was the tricky part of everything. Basically, it was a request that Ferrari had in the early 90s to fit one of their most powerful 12-cylinder engine inside the prototype C Group car, but it was not something made like the 499P completely in factory by Ferrari. So every time that you have to work on a racing Ferrari, and I did with the company back in the days, 20 years ago, I was working for a company making 575 and 550 GTC cars, you know, for the FIA GT competition. And every time that I remember we were touching a Ferrari part, if you are not with the assistance of the main factory, you do worst every time. So every time that, for example, you try to make a tuning in the engine, you can have more powerful, but very often the motor explode after a while. So it is not made by them. It have to be completely developed by them. And this was half the way. So basically they made a super engine with a super chassis, but they didn't have a complete professional develop. It was just made after Momo Moretti. Momo Moretti spent his own money from his company to make this car competitive. That's why I think it's really a dream to think that this guy was able to win Daytona in 98 with his own efforts. So it was his own power, his own money. It's incredible, if you think so. That's why I think it deserves to have such amazing model. And the car also, if you can see, the shape is really beautiful. This is the shape of a barchetta car that is absolutely fantastic. I also used this type of frame. Oliver also provided in the file very different rim, because you had to study a little the configuration that you want to build up. When you have the file or when you buy the models from JPG Models, you have to decide your own version. In my opinion, also because I already made in the past the one with flat areas over here without the vents, you know, that was really the Momo Racer, you know. And for me this was much more beautiful, even because honestly the detail that you can get here, I had bought the version that BBR made back in the 90s. You know, the BBR company was making this car in 1/24 scale, and they made 3-4 different boxes. You know, one was with the short end nose, one was with the long nose and the closed vents, and another one was the pilot version, blue and azure livery, you know, racing in France, I think, for Le Mans, with open vents. But their open vents were not so open like this one is. As you can see, I didn't do so much there. I just cleaned it a little with a little sand grip, and that's it. So this is a very, very nice and fine detail that usually you can never get with a resin model. You know, this is stuff that you just get with plastic models or 3D kits, and that's why I think it's so well done. Of course, in the version 2, the designer also took it away, the front lights there, you know, they are now molded in a separate way, as well as I say, you can choose when you print the file if to have the rear calling opened or not. Both the files that I get at the time were closed, so I'm waiting now Yanez to print me some of the missing part, because here I basically can print both of the version. You know, I need a hub. There I scratch build the hub, but I need a roll bar side, a hub, and the rear part for the engine to have a mechanical part, to avoid to scratch build everything. In the original BBR model there was nothing, there was just a flat floor base, including the hub, with a closed band down here where you just can see the exhaust. It was very, very generical details. Instead, what he did here, I remember that this is just a temporary building of the model that I made now, so it is not anything definitive. Hold on. I want to show you what's inside the real hole. Remember that all the rear part of the car is still not fixed in position, so it may move. And here it is. So I made a cutting by my own. Of course, it's not so easy to cut properly in that position here, you know, as from the original car. The line was that one. But once again, I remember you, there was just, I think, the Perry Racing model that today is ultra rare. Perry Racing was a very nice model, made also in the 90s about this car, ultra rare. I just crossed it one time, it was proposed at a stellar price, you know, completely in resin, but basically featuring all the stuff that you are looking here, you know. And this is the engine. Of course, the version 1 is still missing of a big valve that they added here. It is missing of the air intake coming from these two, the trumpets of the carburetors, you know, and it is missing of the mainspring of the rear suspension, you know. So this is stuff that I have to scratch build or ask the guy to print it again for me, you know, but I don't have it, so it's not this big issue, because of course if you plan to do something like this, of course, like in Formula 1 car, you plan also to probably in the version 2, which I still don't have, I said, it is surely a part that you can place it over and remove. But in my model, I think for the tolerance of the upper side part and so on, that I will leave it like it is, so I will not place the internal air intake inside the rear coverage, you know. And there is also a basic detail of the radiator. Note that in the instruction that you will find in the version 2 of this file, these two radiators are meant to be in the front side of the part of the car, but looking pictures, I see that they are much more suitable in dimensions for this type of solution. So you have basically, because they are molded together in a single piece, you have to cut them in the middle and find them, I think, nearly 45 degrees here, if you plan to build a version with the open vents like I did here. This car is so beautiful that I will not exclude that I can simply finish that simply dressed in red, with black parts, with the black covering up there, and carbon fiber details all over, and full detailed engine visible, you know. While probably the second one, that is a long tail, I can finish in the there was a very nice livery in 3 colored flags, so blue, white and red, of a racing long tail Ferrari in the IMSA series, so we will see about that. But for now I will concentrate on the main model of the short version. Also, this wheel I like it best. I think I have even nicer rims, but they are decent, so probably to show up a building of this one I can also keep them. This is the typical rim that have the golden inside, the silver rim and the black racing tires, slick, and I had the problem, I remember, when we printed I say we, but the guy printed the wheels, because mysteriously in one side of the wheels they were fitting perfectly the rim, This is not glued, as you can see, come up. It is not glued, but it fits perfectly, while in the second set that I had, it does not. So I had to create, you see, I had to create an internal kind of corniche to the rubber, because the rim was in the same dimension. It was the rubber that came up a little bit different in printing, As well as the rear side is still not in position and not fixed. Of course, this was just for the video purposes, but you can simply take it off and detail as much as you want. Of course, this is a side that have to be painted by its own, The 300 SP, 333 SP was famous because you have kind of metal wings up here with cooling lines coming from the radiators going to the probably water pump in the back of the motor, and covering the side of the exhaust with some pins going there, so it's extremely scenographic when you finish this type of model. In this front end part, I just the position of this, I just had to create, as you can see, a floor base. This floor base in my first version was not present, so I simply worked with quite thick plastic art, despite its flex, but you see it's very easy to move, so it is not, in my opinion, honestly, in my opinion, this part is better to be built up by your own. It's just a flat floor that you can simply build it up, drawing from the dimension of the real vehicle, So it's enough that you just study it. Don't copy the curvatures they have on the side of the wrist on the car, because the real car was slightly different. It was a floor base completely straight, so it's quite simple to build it up. And I use a transparent clear plastic to make it more easy, to have the referring point for the cockpit and so on, as well as the main cockpit have been built up. As I said, I don't have a hub in this first version V1 file. If you are using the version 2, you already have a hub, but also here I prefer to build up my own one. It's not so difficult, so you just have to scratch with different type of plastic art. Of course, it's not fixed. This is something that, as you can see, open it there, because I plan to build it up, complete the cockpit from under, and then fit it up in the cockpit like it is. There is many extra parts in this version that I have. Sadly, not the helmet. Many guys ask me, what is that nice helmet? This was a helmet that I made from a pilot in 1/24 scale, that of course I will use on this model. Helmets are so freaking cool, when you finish a model, so it's extremely nice. Even if Moretti helmet was tricky and a little bit complicated, but this little one is old school racing stuff that you will not find in the model. And still, honestly, today you didn't find anybody making 3D helmets at the level of the details that they can do and with the shape that they can do. Probably something in the design that is not get, but they never look decent. I see many made by other companies, but no one of them is convincing. So when I make my one in Formula 1 models in 120 or in 1/24 scale, I made my own one that now I produce it in resin. If you want them, just contact me. As usual, I say, for any kind of request, you can write the comment under the video here, but if you want, just feel free to contact me at my info@alsoldatino.com email. So they're inside my website, alsoldatino.com, so you will always find an answer for everything, And the seats I was using was I think a leftover coming from a Porsche 906. The seat was, even in the picture, was something not so comfortable, honestly, and not so with the criteria of the modern racer, with the protection for the ears and so on. And it fits in that position. I made all the side there, Plus I had to create a bar for the instruments, you know, the instrument panel that is featured also printed there. You can find it there. Plus, extremely cool that Oliver provided a lot of extra rims, you know. This car had many different rims with the 5-wheel sprockets this way and the 5 sprocket that was written around, and you see the difference of the 2 sprocket wheels, you know. Plus 2 different type of wings I got. This is for the high performance tracks like Daytona and so on, which of course I cut at the side. You see, this is the side printed in directly from the machine in 3D, also wrong shape sadly. And I prepared one that I placed, to show you where did I place it there, which I recreated the side panels in aluminium foil, you know, that is an aluminium coming from a frame from a can. But you see, as usual for the wings, it is constantly wrapping a little. There was a very big bar that you had to remove when you was building up this part, when you was cleaning up the part for the wings. There is a part that I removed somewhere here with really clearly written over remove, and he surely left it because he knew that so thin parts can wrinkle, you know. For me it's not so difficult to keep it straight. I already did one time, but this is one of the many problems you can have with pure 3D model of the catalyzation of the stuff. It reminds to me what happened with the first time, with the first edition of the Racing Kit, that they constantly keep on wrapping and so on. You see that is wrapped in this direction. It's quite easy to keep it straight with a higher dryer. I will do later after this video to keep it straight for the second time. This is already more straight than the other, you see, much more straight. As well as also here you had to remove the tail fin and rebuild it up. You see, look the difference in the dimension. That's why I mean, when you go creating a floor base, despite I thinnered that with sand grip, you know, but the side part that he provided in the kit, some parts are not so matching in my opinion. I mean, this is the side, look the thickness, this is 1 millimeter thick, probably is the required floor base for the side skirts to be placed there, you know. Size is the same, so should be there, but in my opinion is much better if you do something like this. This is much thinner, you know, much more easy to work with. Then you have really the building up of the car exactly like for the real vehicle, so you can work in 3 different sectors, because this is the model is prepared now until the painting system. Of course the wheels are not fixed. The wheels are not fixed, are just in position to find the proper setup to look them completely sitting inside the wheel arch. This is a critical point for the final setup of the car. Of course this front end is still not in the final position, is still, you see, not settled in the proper way, have to be taken away, but the car is ready to be painted mostly. So the next step will be to decide what will be going on with the painting, with the painting combo that I will decide. As I said, I probably will go for a simple red version of the car, while you can work separately on the floor base, on the engine and in the cockpit. So it became 3-4 separate kits by their own. So that's it, guys. In my opinion, this is absolutely a bargain model that you have absolutely to search and to buy online. Absolutely. My tip is always to buy both the file from Oliver and the copy made by the guy from eBay, you know, by Janets. And we are talking of few money, you know. It is something that is quite cheap. I mean, for less than $100 you have constantly the file that you can print, not only now, but you can print in the future. And if you buy the file from him, also you have a chance to all the developing that he will do in the future, all the correction that he will do in the future. So for me it's absolutely a bargain that I did. So for me it's not nothing that changed anything to me. 25 euros to pay the designer work, you know. This was a bargain production for me. And not only you will have the file in this scale, but there is inside the folder also the file to print it in bigger scale, so 112, 1.8, 143, 164. You can print all this model in all the scale that you want. So for me this is nearly the definitive version to go for a proper 333 SP. The designer, we were all lucky because he liked so much this car, and despite with minor mistake that he made in the developing of the different version, because it's so messy with this car. Being a racer, every race was different, so it's not so easy to provide a unique version of the car, so he made many different versions, so you have to decide what's going on. The same from the front light, I forget to mention. Many guys complain because the file didn't have transparent parts. Of course, it's just a printing of resin made by the machine. They don't have the covering, but inside you will find the two parts. You see that I marked with the DX and SX. It is the dimes to make your own vacuum formed front light. It's not so easy, but neither so difficult. You know, you have to create a proper dime and mold over that with a vacuum form machine or just with a molded plastic, you know. It's not so easy as it sounds. I'm lucky because for these models and for that model I have still a couple of spare set coming from the original BBR model, which I think will fit nearly perfect because they were just molded with extra plastic, so you can fit your own proportion and dimension to whatever frame you are going to fix over, so I don't think will be this big issue to fit them over this, so I have no problem in this, but other guys can have such problems, so try to work a little on that. You know, I don't provide any part because I'm not involved in anything in this. I'm making neither a little problem. I mean, this is just something that I bought and I liked so much, and I thank so much the designer for having made this wonderful model. That's it, guys. I made this extra video in English. You know, I was hoping that the Italian one basically is the same stuff that I say in the Italian video, you know, but it's in my English, and I'm always scared because I'm a little ashamed to use my English. That is like money, you know, it's never too perfect, never enough. So I hope that you will enjoy and like this stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next.